This podcast may contain explicit language. Bad news sells best, because good news is no news. Ace in the Hole is next. Welcome to the greatest movie of all time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
And tonight, for our 316th episode, we discuss Ace in the Hole from 1951, celebrating its 75th anniversary. Written and directed by Billy Wilder with Lesser Samuels and Walter Newman, cinematography by Charles Lang, music by Hugo Friedhofer, editing by Doan Harrison and Arthur P. Schmidt, starring Kirk Douglas as Charles Chuck Tatum, Jan Sterling as Lorraine Minosa, Robert Arthur as Herbie Cook, Porter Hall as Jacob Q. Boot, Frank Cady as Al Federber, Geraldine Hall as Nellie Federber, Richard Benedict as Leo Minosa, Ray Teal as Sheriff Gus Kretzer, Lewis Martin as McCardle, John Burkes as Papa Minosa, Francis Dominguez as Mama Minosa, Gene Evans as Deputy Sheriff, Frank Jaquette as Sam Smollett, Harry Harvey Sr. as Dr. Hilton, Bob Bumpus as the radio announcer, and Richard Gaines as Nagel. Background for the movie, Ace in the Hole was wide released on June 14th, 1951. On a budget of $1.8 million, the film would only make back $1.3 million in rentals and was widely considered Billy Wilder's first commercial and critical flop. Most critics shredded the film at the time, but it has since undergone a full retrospective, including specific praise from Spike Lee, Roger Ebert, Brad Bird, and Ben Mankiewicz, among others. Despite the critical vitriol of the time, the film was nominated for Best Original Screenplay for 1951. Ace in the Hole currently holds an 88% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 72 score on Metacritic, and a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now, we normally start with our guest for the week. Unfortunately, Mr. Emmel, which we hope that he is doing well with all of his merry band of children and the commitments he's gotten himself into. I certainly feel his pain, not on the children front, of course, but he has decided to better himself with some more schooling this summer. I don't know who would want to take on a set of schooling while they're working full-time, although he has the summer off from his teaching job, so he at least gets to balance that out. But being a full-time dad and going to school, I do not envy, as I am going to school and working a full-time job. That is my relationship to that only, and we wish him well. He is set to be back with us in October for Monsters, Inc., if we cannot get him in before that. Now, Ace in the Hole, Dad. I think you confessed to me earlier this week or last week while we were technically on our road trip. We were on vacation, for anybody that was not in the know. We went on a baseball road trip, something we hadn't done in almost 20 years. That you had never heard of this movie.
Correct.
So why don't you take me through your process of, I guess, your relationship to the movie then?
I didn't know anything about it. You told me we were doing it. I had to look up what it was. I watched it.
Okay.
That seems like the process.
So this is a movie that I think about 2 years ago was on a double feature where they had a guest host on TCM. It was like late on a Saturday or something, and they had A Face in the Crowd, which is a very similar type movie that's very cynical about the media, which I also had you watch about half of with Andy Griffith. I think it's one of his lone film appearances. But 1957, Elia Kazan with Andy Griffith.
This is the lone appearance that was not a comedy.
I see. Well, whatever. Anyway, that being said, the second movie in that lineup, which the guest director, I believe, was Spike Lee, was Ace in the Hole. And both of these movies seem to have a lot to say on the subject of media and on Americans and how they consume media. And it's highly cynical. Now, I did not watch either movie that night, but I definitely remarked at all of our friends commenting on these movies being on. And the feedback I got is these are movies I should watch. Now, I've seen A Face in the Crowd now. It is not a movie we've covered yet, but I imagine at some point we may. And now I made sure that this was on the schedule for this year. It worked out well because it was in a kind of a dead zone period of the anniversary calendar for us. It's a Billy Wilder we haven't discussed, which to some people they think is possibly his best movie. Just saying.
Okay.
And singled or highlighted this one for inclusion. So we bring it for you tonight, even though this is a film not a lot of people know about. I think in our general office poll, the world famous office poll, not a soul had heard of this movie. And given the fact that you hadn't heard of it until like 2 weeks ago, and I had barely heard of it, that's to be expected. This is a movie that really is only deep cinephiles. So with that being said, initial reactions.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was excellent. I thought it had as much prevalence today as it did in 1951, if not more.
I was going to say, I think it's aged extraordinarily well. The commentary, the cynicism, the perspective on American culture, I think has actually aged better than it was at the time. The reason that this movie did not do well is people were not ready to take a big look at themselves and celebrity culture and media circuses and all of this other stuff that goes on in the same way that we're willing to today. They were starting to get or come around to that a little bit later in the decade. A Face in the Crowd is there. Elmer Gantry is there, which did win an Oscar at least. You have some of these kinds of movies slowly leaking out, but it's not the highly thought of movies of the period. And so I was blown away by the second half of this. I thought it was a little bit slow. It was a little meandering to start with. But once you get into the second half of the film, where I'll be quite honest, Kirk Douglas is on another one. Wow. Like, that's all I can really say. I was extremely impressed with this film.
And the only thing I could think of is it's almost like Network was a direct descendant of this.
Yep. I could definitely see it. Now, I think Network, especially because it was intended to be satirical and funny, it was supposed to go to this level that was beyond truth, isn't nearly as cynical as this film. This film is not funny. It is tragic. It is, well, and let's talk about it. Billy Wilder is not necessarily like a feel-good director. He does have his comedies. You know, Some Like It Hot. What was the one we watched for 1942? It was The Major and the Minor or something like that?
Yes.
Is The Fortune Cookie also kind of comedic?
Yes.
The
Very
Apartment's
much so.
a little bit comedic. So he's got his comedic streak. He does Sabrina a couple of years after this. But he's also extraordinarily cynical. You can't look at Double Indemnity. You can't look at Sunset Boulevard and not think this is a guy that really does not think well of insurance companies, of insurance salesmen, of Hollywood generally, without a certain level of cynicism that is quite apparent and bubbling at the surface. But I pose to you, is this his most cynical film?
Yes, I would say. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but the guy is just, he's blunt. I mean, have you ever heard the story of how Billy Bob Thornton met him? He was working at a cocktail party, and he turns to him and he's delivering drinks or hors d'oeuvres or something, and he says, "Oh, you want to be an actor?" He goes, "Well, yeah. How did you know?" He says, "Because every waiter here wants to be an actor." And he says, let me give you a piece of advice. You're too ugly to be a leading man, and you're too pretty to be a character actor. Do you know how to write? I mean, how blunt can you be?
That was also at a period of time where I feel like Billy Wilder, likely in the 90s, was in his I don't give a fuck era.
Well, and the thing was, is he didn't even remember it. Billy Bob was telling this story to somebody, and he called his agent up and said, hey, I'd like to have lunch with him. I don't remember this, but I'd like to talk to him about it. And so they met and had lunch. So, but yeah.
Well, I know that he was willing to talk to a lot of people. If I was watching some different clips of people talk about the movie and about Billy Wilder today, and one of them was Spike Lee. He said, I literally just called his office. He was still working in his 80s. He wasn't producing any films. Nobody thought he would, but they're just like, he's there every day. He's working on something. And so I called his office and said, you want to have lunch? He's like, yeah, I've seen your films. You're really good. So let's have lunch. And then they talked for like hours. Not like the story of John Ford from the end of The Fabelmans.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned before, man, this is going to be a really hard decision when we get to performances. Who's better, Wilder or Douglas? But this is a really close race because I'm going to throw this out there. I think this is Kirk Douglas's best film that I've ever seen. I haven't seen Paths of Glory, so I will hold that potential open. But of the few limited films of his that I've seen, I think this is his best.
I don't know. What's the Otto Preminger film with John Wayne? In Harm's Way. I liked Kirk Douglas in Harm's Way. But you might be right. It's been a while since I've saw In Harm's Way.
He was in a lot of films that don't have a lot of prestige. So Spartacus and Paths of Glory are films that people see because they're watching Kubrick's oeuvre.
Yeah.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a Disney movie where he's a contributor, but like I don't think he's the primary reason that you might still watch that movie. Outside of that, Ulysses, The Vikings, The War Wagon, Lust for Life, The Bad and the Beautiful, like he's got an unusual oeuvre for a leading man that people have heard of.
Some people, and I've never seen the performance, thought his performance of Van Gogh or Van Gogh, however you want to pronounce it, was one of his better performances.
He didn't ever actually win a Oscar for any capability, and I don't know if he was ever nominated, to be quite honest. He got some lifetime honors and such, but I think his son has surpassed him.
Yes.
He was also in a movie that I happened to, and I don't know what the name of it is, but where he was opposite Burt Lancaster and Laurence Olivier.
Tough Guys.
I see.
It's the song Tough Enough that was a big hit in the 80s, was the theme song to that movie. It was a two ex-cons get out and they decide to rob a train that they failed to rob before they got sent to prison. They got sent to prison because they couldn't rob it. So they decided, let's go rob it and solve the one crime we failed. I loved the film when I saw it in theaters, probably about 85. But they were close friends, Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. I mean, they were best friends.
Okay, I could see that. So do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. Meet Chuck Tatum, a fast-talking, down-on-his-luck newspaper reporter played by Kirk Douglas. After burning bridges at every big city paper in the country, he ends up stranded in Albuquerque, New Mexico, working for a small-town daily and waiting for his big break. Then one day, fate drops a story in his lap. A local man named Leo Minosa gets trapped inside a collapsed mine shaft. Instead of calling for a quick rescue, Tatum sees an opportunity. He cuts a deal with a corrupt sheriff, engineers a longer and far more dangerous rescue operation, and turns the whole ordeal into a national media spectacle. Crowds pour in, Carnival rides go up, and the story is everywhere. But the longer the rescue drags on, the worse Leo's condition becomes, and Tatum, who starts this as pure ambition, begins to realize what he's actually done.
Thank you. What is the film about?
The way the media can play up and more or less destroy. I'm wondering, and I can't remember the timeline between this film and McCarthy. I think they're running parallel. I'm wondering if Wilder, who was known for more liberal politics, may have been influenced by the early stages of McCarthyism and how McCarthy was able to play the press.
The power of media to create a frenzy, but the appetite of the American public. I want to stress both sides of the equation on this. It's not just that the media is exploiting something, but the willingness to be exploited is also there. The appetite for the American to want to watch the car crash, see the disaster, be pulled in by terrible news.
It's not just America, okay?
That's probably fair.
Big Brother is an extremely popular show in Germany.
Okay.
Humans have a strong proclivity towards voyeurism.
Okay, sure. But the focus of this movie is more on exploiting their appetite for specifically tragedy.
Again, they are fascinated. It's a voyeuristic experience. They love to see it.
How is it voyeuristic? There is nothing in here where they're seeing
looking
themselves.
at other people's lives and other people's tragedies and getting involved in it. It's one of the reasons why everybody seems to stop and gawk in a car accident or why people go to NASCAR and so many people wish for accidents or crashes. It's a weird thing, a weird relationship we have where we get involved and get interested in tragedy. It's like it's almost as if we're going, well, at least my life does not suck as much as that.
Well, comparison is the quickest path to misery.
I said all along, and we have the office. We have a business consultant who was good friends with Jerry Springer. In fact, Jerry Springer was godfather for one of Jerry Springer's kids, and his comment was, as Jerry said all along, my show is junk. Don't watch it. It's terrible. But if they're going to pay me $10 or $15 million a year to do it, I'm going to do it. But again, the point being is that it became a big thing for Social Security firms to advertise on Jerry Springer. And the reason was that I came to the conclusion, and it's talked about, is that people sitting at home would watch Jerry Springer and they could be sick. They could be, their spouses left them, their children walk away. Everything, their life is messed up. But the reason they watch it is because they can sit for a half an hour and go, at least I'm better than that shit.
I know I'm the outlier in all of this by not really caring for reality television that way. But yeah, the trashier, the better sometimes. I swear that's why Love Island gets the ratings that it does.
I know.
I don't get it. I personally don't, but okay.
I know. People love this stuff. And realistically, aren't the storytelling aspects of our lives and why we love movies and television in part our own voyeurism into other people's lives and seeing how other people deal with situations and tragedies?
If it bleeds, it leads.
More or less.
There's a part of me that would like to think that there are journalists, and I put that somewhat in air quotes because I think this straddles a little bit of the difference, the people between who whipping up a media frenzy probably are TV people these days, like the 24-hour cable news cycle
Nowadays.
and trying to sensationalize and whatever else. But
Talk about Pulitzer and Hearst leading into the Spanish-American War.
okay, I just want to separate out a little bit between the people that want to inform the public and the people that want to exploit the public. I think there are good journalists.
Yes, they are. And they're usually not watched very much.
Well, frankly, I don't think there are a lot of great journalists on television.
They ended up on things like the News Hour on PBS.
Well, even one of the lone programs where I would say there was still decent journalism being done seems to be going by the wayside currently in 60 Minutes.
Seems to be.
I'm giving it a little latitude here.
I don't know how Leslie Stahl is not like just cringing with the thought of even showing up for work.
Because everybody has their price. Like, if you really wanted to be cynical about all this shit, engage the topic. All right. Did you know? After the film was released, it got bad reviews and lost money. The studio, without Billy Wilder's permission, changed the title to The Big Carnival to increase the box office take of the film. It didn't work. On top of that, Wilder's next picture, Stalag 17 from 1953, was a hit, and he expected a share of the picture's profits, the same as this film. Paramount's accountants told him that since this picture lost money, the money it lost would be subtracted from the profits of Stalag 17.
Yeah. And was this Paramount?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Figures.
Did you know?
Sons of bitches.
A canvas desert water bag hangs on the front grille of the car that Tatum and Herbie drive. Such bags, which cool water by evaporation, were common in desert travel in the days before coolers became widely available, and the water was used both for drinking and for adding to an overheated auto radiator. Didn't really know about those, but it'd be interesting. Did you know? The original shooting location is precisely 2.7 miles east of the Arizona-New Mexico border on State Highway 118, formerly Route 66, and it gives the coordinates here, which I won't read. Now on private property, the empty cliff niche is plainly visible just 200 yards away from the highway. At the time, Paramount constructed the replica cliff dwellings inside the niche at a cost of $30,000. I also read somewhere that it was the largest non-war picture set ever constructed to that point.
Okay.
Did you know? John Burkus, who played Papa Minosa, died on July 5th, 1951, the day after the movie's wide release. I mean, it sucks that in the moment he couldn't be appreciated, but years later, this being your last film, I think I'd be okay with that. And finally, did you know? In a 1950 memo to Billy Wilder, Kirk Douglas objected to several aspects of Chuck Tatum's monologue about missing New York City. No pastrami, no garlic pickles, no Madison Square Garden, no Yogi Berra, among other things. Douglas asked, "What the hell is a Yogi Berra?" Douglas's secretary, who was amused her boss who didn't know who the New York Yankees star was, told him he was a catcher. And with that, we'll take our first break, and we'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 317th episode, we discuss Klute from 1971, celebrating its 55th anniversary. Directed by Alan J. Pakula, written by Andy Lewis and Dave Lewis, cinematography by Gordon Willis, music by Michael Small, editing by Carl Lerner, starring Jane Fonda, Donald Sutherland, and Roy Scheider. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. We left off at, you know what? since we don't have a guest, I'm going to call a slight audible, and we have some extra space that we can fill. So,
Audible.
That is correct. I have 3 gentlemen this evening that yes, gentlemen, that we can nominate for this month's edition of the GMOAT Hall of Fame. I have one actor.
If this was coming up.
I have one actor. I have one cinematographer, our first potential cinematographer, and I have one editor. What would you like first?
Let's do the editor.
This person worked a lot of overlap with primarily Alfred Hitchcock, but he did at least do one Billy Wilder film that we've covered. He is responsible for The Birds, Psycho, North by Northwest, Vertigo, The Man Who Knew Too Much, the American version, Rear Window, and Stalag 17. I give you George Tomasini.
Of course.
I figured you wouldn't have a problem. Frankly, if you deny any of these, it would be kind of surprising, but...
Yeah.
All right, so we have yet another editor into the mix on our overall list, and somebody's extra sneezy for anybody watching the video.
I hit the audio or the sneeze button.
You did. I'm just, for anybody reacting to that otherwise, but yeah. He will be our 4th editor behind Michael Kahn, Ray Lovejoy, and Robert Layton. All right, we have a cinematographer, potentially our first one, and an actor.
Cinematographer.
Okay. This person has worked on North by Northwest, Vertigo, Rear Window, The Man Who Knew Too Much, the American version, Dial M for Murder, and The Birds. I give you Robert Burks.
Yeah, of course.
I told you. Actually, this is our second cinematographer. I forgot. Wally Pfister was our first inclusion in April. So this is actually our second cinematographer. The only categories that we have yet to fill anybody in on is actress.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We have 2 casting directors, 1 costume designer, 2 art directors. We have 7 composers, 4 editors, 2 cinematographers, a couple of screenwriters. So, it's on there.
Where's Meryl?
We haven't covered a single Meryl movie yet.
Really?
Not one. Not one.
Okay.
We haven't done Kramer versus Kramer. We haven't done The Deer Hunter. We haven't done Sophie's Choice. We haven't done Bridges of Madison County. My bad. Somewhere Kieran's screaming into his car stereo on the way to Home Depot. Anyway, so we haven't covered any of those, and we haven't covered The Devil Wears Prada. So no, there are 0 Meryl appearances. I believe the closest person that we have to this point is Julia Roberts, who's sitting at 4. Pretty Woman, 2 different Oceans movies, and Erin Brockovich. But I don't know what her 5th movie is necessarily going to be unless Mom selects one for us to put on the list somewhere.
Notting Hill.
Oh, God.
Gotcha.
I love romantic comedies, but Notting Hill is atrocious. I will cover it, but just understand that I'm going to do nothing but take pot shots at it the entire episode. Anyway, we have a couple of actresses at 3. Audrey Hepburn, Katharine Hepburn, Grace Kelly. Shelley Winters is at 3, but that might be a little tougher to try and get to. We have Jodie Foster at 3, for what it's worth. So, yeah. But, all right, and we have finally one actor tonight who finally made it to his 5th inclusion. He is the original James Bond, starring in Dr. No, Goldfinger, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, A Bridge Too Far, and recently, The Rock, Sean Connery.
Hard to say yes after The Rock, but...
We got feedback from both sides after that episode. People who thought we were too harsh, people who thought we were just right on.
Yeah, Well, okay.
You know,
I
I'm
don't
okay
give a
with it.
shit. I'm okay. I think I did what I wanted to do with it. So anyway, yes.
Yeah. I figured you wouldn't have a real trouble with that one. So that will be our 13th different actor behind James Stewart, Harrison Ford, Morgan Freeman, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, Tom Hanks, John Ratzenberger, Arlie Ermey, Robert De Niro, Dennis Hopper, John Wayne, Ward Bond, and Robert Duvall. I think that's a pretty good actors list. I think we can continually add more to it. But man, at some point, we've got to have a woman appear in enough films.
Do I need to like change my vote on Carrie Fisher in order to get this over with?
Well, I think it's funnier for me to be able to trot it out for you every couple of months and just pick on you for it.
I mean, 4 of them, yes, but shampoo?
At some point, Jack Warden's going to get in, and one of his inclusions will have to be shampoo.
Well, I know.
Oh, I just started watching a different Jack Warden film, which is so freaking goofy. And Justice for All, it's a Norman Jewison film from '79 with Al Pacino.
Yes, I remember it.
Never seen it.
We didn't do the Paul Newman.
The Verdict? No, we have not covered The Verdict.
Yeah. But he was in Shampoo. He was in 12 Angry Men. He was in
All the President's Men.
All the President's Men.
The Verdict would end up being 4 whenever we may or may not cover it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what we had 4.
Well, if we eventually get to The Verdict, but no, we have 3. You're going to make me cover...
How many do we have for Robert Webber? Have we done Pink Panther?
We did the original Pink Panther.
He wasn't in that. 10? No.
I forgot Jack Warden was in From Here to Eternity.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be his
4th.
4th. So, yeah. You have a couple of different options to get to his 5th. At some point, you're going to make me watch either Heaven Can Wait or Being There.
See, I liked Heaven Can Wait. I think it's one of Warren Beatty's best films.
Okay.
And Being There, I just absolutely love. It is just so... It's not far out of line from what this film is. About the sheer stupidity of public.
But either way, eventually he will be another of those supporting actor, character actor types that we will have. So that'll end our GMOAT for the month of June 2026. I think we skipped May. And we will enter Sean Connery, we will enter Robert Burks, and we will enter George Tomasini into the mix. 2 people that worked with Hitchcock, and, well, I guess technically Sean Connery did work with Hitchcock, but not nearly as prolifically as the other 2. And, yeah.
Marnie. It's a good film.
Never seen it. Anywho, we'll jump back into the rest of the program. We left off at Best Performance. Who did you have down?
I had Billy Wilder. And it's because not just the direction, but the writing. And he wrote with lesser Samuels and Walter Newman, but the combination pushed him ahead of Kirk Douglas as far as I was concerned.
I went the opposite way. And I try and look at it. I know that when you start adding titles to the equation, writer, director, producer, etc., the totality is what we've always basically defaulted to. And so best performance has often been a director's award. But this is one where I've really played with this equation, and I brought it up before. If you take one of them away from the movie, how much different is the movie? Normally that will default to the director because they have such a unique style and flair and whatever else. And to be fair, this movie is very different if it's not done by Billy Wilder. In no way am I discrediting him in any form. But I wonder if you put in I'm trying to think of somebody else from the time. Let's say a Burt Lancaster. Is it the same movie? Lancaster did Sweet Smell of Success. He did Elmer Gantry. There's a possibility he could have done something like this, but I think it's a very different movie. And I just don't know if it's quite the same impact.
I personally think you could have put Bogey in it.
I suppose the role works with somebody who's a little older. It's possible. This would have been him right before African Queen and Sabrina. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
At the time, you also had Richard Widmark, who was on the rise. I think you could have put Widmark in this role, too.
I put Wilder as my best secondary, so it's not like I'm discounting him. It was basically 1A, 1B. Douglas ended up winning out for me as best performance, but I certainly don't fault anybody who has, well, I mean, I put Douglas ahead as well, but if you have Wilder ahead, I mean, I get it. I ended up going with Wilder in secondary. Who did you go? Did you go Douglas in secondary? Yeah. So we just flip-flopped.
So charismatic's going to be the real telltale.
Well, it's the one where we might have some separation, or at least something a little bit different or off the cuff, because there aren't as many big name or known character actors in this movie. It's really, for the most part, Kirk Douglas and then a whole bunch of people that I really haven't heard of before. I went with Frank Jaquette, the guy who plays the engineer. I just found him to be the most sensible, even though, yes, he still continues to go along with it. He does the drilling. He seems to be the more level-headed guy amongst all of them. And I don't know, there was a kindliness to him that I was struck by. So, yeah, that's where I went.
I had Jan Sterling.
She rubbed me the wrong way, though.
That was her character. That's what she was supposed to do.
Yeah, but only to a point. Like, I never really sympathized with her at all.
No, you weren't supposed to. She was she was just part of the whole thing. She was using the situation the same way Kirk Douglas was.
But then why would she be charismatic?
Because when she was on screen, you were drawn to her, whether it was her pouting, her manipulation, her, whatever. That's just my thought process, which is she was a character you kind of almost loved to hate.
I didn't love to hate her. I just hated her. Like, I thought she was, I don't know. She's probably my least favorite character in the entire thing. I much preferred his sidekick. I preferred Mr. Boot. I preferred the sheriff, the engineer. She was the most two-dimensionally drawn character in this entire endeavor.
But shouts out to Frank Cady, the guy that was the husband in the couple that was camping there. If you were my age and you grew up and you were watching Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and the Beverly Hillbillies, Frank Cady as Sam Drucker at Drucker's General Store in Hooterville. You know who I'm talking about.
Let's move to Best Scene. I have 5 nominees here. I have Meeting Leo, which is the first time that Douglas's character Tatum goes into the mine. Then I have Meeting with the Sheriff and the Engineer, which is the first real conversation where this takes a completely different turn, that he's really pressing his advantage and trying to play up the entire story, draw it out as much as possible, make this into a bigger frenzy. Then I have the national media, which is the conversation that Tatum has with all of the reporters from the other big cities when they finally come in and he's in their tent trying to play it up. And I have Anniversary Present, which should be somewhat apparent if you've seen the movie. And finally, Chuck's Confession, which is the final, I would say, last like 10 minutes of the movie. It does cut across multiple scenes, but I think it's good to keep those all together. From about the point where he tells everybody to go home to trying to confess to Nagel so that he runs up a bigger story, to then driving back to Albuquerque and dying on the floor. Spoiler alert, by the way. Did you have any others to include?
No.
Okay, then out of these, what is the best scene?
Meeting Leo. I think it more defines the character of Tatum than anything else.
See, I found it to be anniversary present because I think that's the moment where it draws to a complete head. He is so conflicted in that moment that he recognizes he may not be able to save Leo. He's been acting this entire time, and it's all weighing on his conscience. And eventually he ends up stabbed and dying from this moment where he has had such a vitriolic relationship with Lorraine, Jan Sterling's character. And it explodes in this moment where he forces her to wear the present that Leo got her, that she's not even grateful for the one thing he could scrape together. Nothing was ever good enough for her. And he wants her to be grateful because in this moment he realizes he's screwed up and he can't even give the one satisfaction that he was looking forward to, which is trying to make his wife happy. So a good-natured soul is cut short in the world and doesn't even get to do the one thing that he was really looking forward to, and it's his fault. So to me, that is the most emotionally moving moment of the movie.
That's why it's my favorite, but not the best.
Okay. My favorite is meeting with the sheriff and the engineer. Don't ask me why I think corruption is so fun in this moment, but him basically maneuvering and manipulating, and it's kind of like those scenes in heist films where the plan comes together kind of thing. And as he's strong-arming the sheriff and he gets the engineer to do what he wants, it's one of the moments of daylight where you're kind of like in on the joke almost. And then it turns tragic after that point. So I think it's the last moments where it feels like he's got full control of everything that's going on. Most indelible moment for you?
Chuck's confession.
Mine too.
Trying to get everybody to believe him and ultimately dying in the process.
I think he's recognized that he's dying and that he has nothing left to lose. And frankly, I don't think he wants to continue on. He's so distraught that he let this guy die that he's willing to tell the truth for the first time. And it's the last shot I thought was odd the first moment I saw it, but the more I've thought about it afterward, the way that it's shot from the floor up, looking up at him and he falls, I thought was somewhat of a true metaphor that Wilder's trying to tell through the visual.
The low point?
No, that it's looking up at him and he falls down and we're at ground level. He has now hit rock bottom.
Yeah. The low point. Yes.
So that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find us the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 285 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Patrick Godfrey, 93, English actor. Maurice, The Count of Monte Cristo, Ever After. Robert Keohill, 95, American actor, Shaft's Big Score. Sue, Death Wish. Kelly Curtis, 69, American actress, The Devil's Daughter, Trading Places, False Arrest. And Anthony Head, 72, English actor, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Ted Lasso, Merlin.
Now, I do not directly have much of a relationship with Kelly Curtis, but I do want to say it is notable that she is the younger sister of, why am I drawing a blank now? Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And so at least some relationship to somebody that I do have a lot of history with in their work and such. Anthony Head, not personally as much of a relationship as a lot of other people who watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was not one of those. But as the villainous ex-husband Rupert from Ted Lasso, and given the fervor of that show, particularly for season 1 where he's more of a featured villain, I think there are a lot of people that have a relationship to him. I saw a lot of people posting the particular scene that Ted Lasso is so famous for, Be Curious, Not Judgmental, with the dart scene where he is a central player in that moment. And even though Ted Lasso is now coming back for its 4th season, which I don't know if he's a part of or not, I would imagine that there will be some celebration, memoriam placed onto him, or a remembrance at one of the episodes as it's about to come out here in the next couple of months, I think in August. That being said, he was a very good smug villain to play off of. For the optimism of the show, he seemed like the villainous, slimy billionaire that you could easily hate.
Yes.
Anything to add for the week, Dad?
No.
And so we remember these here fondly for their contributions with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Let's move to best lines. I have Charles Tatum, bad news sells best, because good news is no news.
Lorraine, I don't go to church. Kneeling bags my nylons.
Charles Tatum, I've done a lot of lying in my time. I've lied to men who wear belts. I've lied to men who wear suspenders. But I'd never be so stupid as to lie to a man who wears both belt and suspenders.
Jacob Q. Boot, do you drink a lot? Charles Tatum, not a lot, just frequently.
Charles Tatum, human interest. You pick up the paper, you read about 84 men or 284 or a million men like in a Chinese famine. You read it, but it doesn't stay with you. One man's different. You want to know all about him. That's human interest.
Reporter, we're all in the same boat. Charles Tatum, I'm in the boat, you're in the water. Now let's see how you can swim.
Tatum, it's a good story today. Tomorrow they'll wrap a fish in it.
Charles Tatum, when they bleached your hair, they must have bleached your brain too.
My last one, Tatum, I don't make things happen. All I do is write about them.
And my last one, Charles Tatum, there's 3 of us buried here. Leo, me, and you. We all want to get out, and we're going to. Only I'm coming back in style.
All right, let's move to the Stanley Rubric. Legacy is up first. Legacy is the measure of the legacy of approximately 5 years after the film came out. So that would be 1956 to today. What is the legacy of this film as shared between 2 equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Would you like to go first or second?
I'll go second.
I think that this actually has more reverence than we're willing to give it credit in the industry. It is not commemorated amongst a bunch of lists in the way that like the big films are. It is certainly not the first movie that if you ask a bunch of people about Billy Wilder movies, that is going to be on the tip of their tongue, but I do not think it is forgotten completely. And so by that metric, because it does have its supporters, I'm going to give it a 3. Where I also have a difficult time is on the balance between the public and the cinephiles. Usually at this point, I give 0 credit to the general audience. If cinephiles like yourself, particularly people who knew a lot about 50s cinema, did not know about this movie, I have to imagine that this is a very deep cut. So I am somewhere between a 1 and a 2. A 2 is usually more where I think a good amount or like half of cinephiles have seen it, but I'm not even sure that's necessarily true. So I'm going to straddle the difference here. I'm going to go 1.5, and I believe that is a 4.5 overall.
Legacy, I have a 3.5. The industry. I think the fact that it has risen so highly among especially directors and people on the inside, Roger Ebert included in his list of best films, I think that says a lot. I think you're dead on for the public. I'm at a 1.5 as well. So we're only a half point different.
So that's a 4.75 average between the two of us. Then we move to impact and significance. I went first on the last category. I would invite you to go first here, although I'm willing to open this up if you want me to. This is a measure of the same two broad strokes as the last category, except we're accounting it for the initial 5 years after its release. So roughly 1951 to 1956. What is the impact and significance between those same two groups, industry and audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10.
Did get 2 Academy Award nominations.
What was the second one?
It was Best Script, and it was...
I only saw Best Screenplay.
I thought it was like editing or something.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I only saw the one.
Well, anyway, I'm at a 3 for the impact.
Ooh. We're going to be very different then.
And public, I'm at a 1. They just didn't buy into it. They didn't care.
So you're at a 4. As much as I enjoyed this movie, as much as I wish other people had seen it, this is the category where I feel like we have to be the most factually honest with what we have for facts on the ground. The industry in the moment cut into this. I think the only critic that I saw that was favorable in the moment was Bosley Crowther. Outside of that, and I didn't see like a ton of critics, so I don't know how much stock I put in that, but it was notably cut down by critics and industry people for being too cynical for the moment. We hadn't gone through the trauma of the 60s yet to really open us up to some of this as theater. So I can bear with that a lot. But the Oscar nominations only gets it up to a 1 for me. Like, even Billy Wilder said that this was the one that cost him the most individual capital to get it made, but he was most proud of doing this film over any other. So I agree with him, but by that same token, that says to me the industry hated this movie and made him pay for it continuing onward. And when a movie loses money, I have a hard time giving it really any credit with the public. Yes, it made back 1.3 million. I might be willing to negotiate a little bit higher, but I am going to start at a 0. So that would be a 1 overall, which might be my lowest impact and significance score I've ever given. So currently, the median point between the two of us would be a 2.5.
Well, I'm not budging. And I'll let you have your say. I'm not going to argue with you. I understand your points.
I think I can live with a 2.5.
Okay.
I think you're a little high, so...
I might be. But
if you're not going to move down, but you're not going to really argue against me, I think I can live with the 2.5. Then we move to novelty. This is a measure of anything original about the film, anything creative, anything unique in that half of the category, and 5 points for execution for a total of 10, 5 and 5 points apiece. Since you went first on the last category, I'll go first here since you also normally lead off classicness. I think this is a somewhat unicorn movie inside of one of the great directors' broad filmographies. I think that it is Kirk Douglas's best performance. It reminds me a lot of the same way that I was impressed by Bogart's performance in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is also an incredibly cynical film. I think that this is Wilder's most cynical film, but it also might be the film that I think has aged the best, which we'll get to here in a second. So I'm going to go with a 5 on the originality. The one drawback I have to the execution on this is that while Wilder does his best with a lot of the camera shots, I don't find a lot of them to be like truly over the top stylistic, and it's not the best camera work that I've seen him perform in some capacity. I would also say that a lot of the smaller characters to me are just there. Like, if you had a better cast, a better roster, and I think a lot was invested in the script writing, in the production value, and all of these other things that are going on. So they had to skimp a little bit on the cast, but that's the one area where I would say it's drawn back. So I have that at a 4, and I have this at a 9.
I also have the originality at a 5. I couldn't think of anything else that was anywhere close. Execution, I'm up a half a point from you. And the reason I went down, because I think overall the execution was wonderful. The problem I had is that I found so many of the characters or subplot characters to be rather flat and cookie cutter. I mean, the photographer was like G. Willikers, like one step below Jimmy Olsen.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's very kind of in that model.
Yeah. So I went down a half a point on that. So I'm at a 9.5.
Okay, so that is a 9.25 average between the two of us. Then we move to Classicness, which is a category defined by its nuance. For this, we have a baseline of a 6 as the median point instead of starting at a 5, where that would normally be the median point because it is easier to take points off than it is to add points on. But again, I think in recent episodes, we've added a lot more points on, and I feel like we're going to do so again here and not take off for really small, stupid stuff. I will take off for one thing that some people might dismiss as being a little sensitive, but I don't care. But because this category lives in the gray, we'll turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
All right, starting at a 6. Normally, if it ages well, I give it an up 2. This aged extremely well. For a 75-year-old film, this thing is right on. So I had to go 3. So I'm at a 9 there. Except I'm to take a point off because of Kirk Douglas's abuse of the woman. I'm sorry. Slapping her around, choking her, basically forcing her against her will to do a bunch of stuff. It's just, maybe it's partly because there's been so many allegations through the years since he's passed against Kirk Douglas that kind of rubs me a little the wrong way. I also found that there was a small point, half a point, because I think it was a little exploitative of Native American culture. I mean, the fact that every time he walked in and the Native American guy was at the counter, I mean, I understand what's going on because of the time frame, but it doesn't age well.
That's fair.
So I'm at a 7.5.
I would say I went up to the full 10, and then I marked it back a point, which I will include I don't want to say it's not racist to include the Native American stuff, but it's, yeah, you said exploitative. I guess I can agree with that. The exploitative nature of this, where it didn't need to include some of that stuff, where it was a little over the top. That's fair. But it's the domestic violence. That is singly the number one thing that ages the worst about this movie, and it has to deserve an entire point off. So I'm actually at a 9. Because I think this movie, as we started off with, is something that actually might be better now than it was in its day.
Yeah.
And nothing to me determines timelessness quite in that fashion. We have often given points ahead for being ahead of its time. Nothing says ahead of its time such as reevaluation. And the amount of reevaluations that this movie has undergone, I think, to me screams a certain level of classicness that bore with it over time. Either you start at a certain point and you never lose your luster, a la, I'm trying to think, what is the great one that you could point, Lawrence of Arabia, where in the moment everybody thought it was great, it wins Best Picture, and it's never really fallen off that pedestal. It's just remained great. Or you have Wizard of Oz, Citizen Kane, Vertigo, that have all undergone massive reevaluations over years or decades.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are somewhat classic or timeless to me, and so I'm at a 9. So that is, of course, now I got to do the math. That is an 8.25 average between the two of us. Let's move to rewatchability. Insert your own subjective scoring here.
I'm at a 7. I will watch this again. In fact, I probably would like to watch it again every couple of years because I think it's a lot better film than I had thought it was going to be, and a lot better film and more poignant than I think a lot of films are.
I added it as a 7.5. I understand your 7, but that's also been kind of movies that you enjoy that you feel like you could come back to once in a while rate for you. This is me thinking a little bit more highly of this movie, that I think there are things, now that I've watched it for the first time, now that I know the plot, that I could pick up that are different and really watch for the second time through and really grasp a further nuanced understanding of all of the intricacies and small subtleties in the film that I didn't get the first time. Some of that is defaulting to a little bit of a subjectivity that I've said that I am not personally going to do, that I try and remain more of the objective. Maybe this is me being optimistic about the audience, but since this category is about rewatching the film instead of getting them to watch it for the first time, and I know I'm somewhat contradicting some of my scores from earlier this year by doing this, I'm going to say it's a 7.5. So that would be a 7.25 average between the two of us. Then for audience score on this one, we had an 8.0 for IMDb because there was no Google score. I could not find one. I don't know. They didn't even have the availability that you could like vote on the film so that there could be a Google score. So I had to pull in something else that I've never done before to help with the audience score on this one because I didn't want it to just be the Rotten Tomatoes score. So it's an 8.0 for the IMDb score and a 92% for the Rotten Tomatoes score, giving us an 8.6. So to repeat the categories, we had a 4.75 for legacy, a 2.5 for impact and significance, a 9.25 for novelty, an 8.25 for classicness, a 7.25 for rewatchability, and an 8.6 for audience score, giving us a final total of 40.6, and currently tying it on our list with a film we covered only a few months ago, V for Vendetta, at number 231. I mean, this feels somewhat similar to Blood Simple for me. It's a film I enjoyed. It's a film that I feel more people should see. That is a lesser known work of a great set of directors, but it scores poorly because nobody saw it in the moment, and so it can't really move up the list. It's one of these where I wish it could be higher on the list, but it's not. And that just happens occasionally with how we've decided to weight our scoring. But as usual, if you have any feedback for us, good, bad, or otherwise, you can find us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can write us at any of our socials at GMOAT Podcast, or you can find us at our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMOAT Podcast. All right, remaining questions for the film. Does Tatum ever repent? And obviously his demise, he dies at the end of the film. Does he actually ever repent, or is he just trying to cure his soul and doesn't know how?
What's the difference?
I think he's seeking repentance. I don't think he actually ever does.
He's doing what he can.
Well, maybe. Is he a redeemable character?
Probably at this point, no.
I think it's too far gone. And the fact that he dies in the end doesn't really help that.
And him dying in the end, what difference does it make? Because if he doesn't die there, he dies in the bottom of a whiskey bottle.
Yeah, that's probably fair. And finally, where does Lorraine go?
To hell, which is a good place for her.
Fair enough. Did you have any remaining questions?
I do not.
Okay. I have a feeling she drives out to like LA. That feels like 1950s LA feels like a place for her. A femme fatale and kind of a noir-ish film. I think I would do that, but
I think I saw her in LA Confidential.
Sure. She was Kim Basinger's role. Moving on, remaining thoughts for the week. I'll let you go first.
I am looking forward to my Saturday evening. Pressure is going to be playing in Wisconsin Rapids, and I am going.
That would be the movie Pressure.
Yes.
Okay.
Brendan Fraser and Andrew Scott, excuse me. So,
well, good for you. That is the dad movie of dad movies.
yes.
It dads in the dads.
Should have been released on Father's Day.
Probably, but it would have been competing with Toy Story, which, let's be honest, is probably more of the Father's Day movie.
Probably.
Although they're seeking different audiences, so I don't know. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Either way, I'm glad you're going to get to go see it since you have talked nothing else for film except that one film and wanting to see that one film for like 3 weeks.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I am hoping I'm going to have a chance to get to Disclosure Day over the weekend, which would be fun. Anytime Sir Stephen graces us with yet another project, it's always a seminal moment. Also, I wanted to ask, how did your first episode go this last week?
I thought, well, I mean, I accomplished what I wanted, and I thank you for helping me get through the setup and getting it running. I have I've planned out what I'm going to do with my next episode, and I just encourage anybody who would like to sit down. I mean, it was basically just me talking about kind of my background and history and what I was going to try and cover and such. So we'll see.
Now, I do want to stress to the audience that the second episode already has come out, and for what it's worth, the audio version of both of these live shows has not been uploaded yet because somebody has not asked me about that process or how to go about that because it doesn't do it itself automatically. So right now, these are only available on YouTube, but you can find them there under his channel, Sidebar by, is it DWD? So it's at
Sidebar
by
Dana
DW.
Duncan. Yeah. The email address
don't
is
confuse
Sidebar
people.
by
What?
DWD.
Okay. And that's got to be the same tag, right, though, on YouTube?
Okay.
What do you mean, okay? I'm asking you to confirm that.
Yes.
Okay, so officially, it's Sidebar by DWD.
Yes.
Okay, so at Sidebar by DWD. Thank you. Otherwise, I don't have anything else for the week. I am looking forward to next week's film. It is another one of these that I get to tick off my list where I've been kind of anticipating having a reason to watch it, with this now being the third of the, I think what some people refer to it as the Conspiracy Trilogy by Alan J. Pakula, ending with All the President's Men, but I saw The Parallax View last year or the year before. It might have been 2 years ago. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was 2 years ago. And now this will be the first of those three movies, and the last of which that I have yet to view. Have you seen Clute before?
Yes, but I don't remember it. I must have seen it in the late 70s on HBO. I remember the film and something about it, but it must have been one of these where I wasn't paying that close of attention, but I just remember bits and pieces.
All right, fair enough. But that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 317th episode, we discuss Clute from 1971, celebrating its 55th anniversary. Directed by Alan J. Pakula, written by Andy Lewis and Dave Lewis, cinematography by Gordon Willis, music by Michael Small, editing by Carl Lerner, starring Jane Fonda, Donald Sutherland, and Roy Scheider. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle at GMOAT The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.